A woman once asked the computer for therapy, and a few minutes later, she told the man who built the computer to please leave the room. Now, this was in the 1960s, and the craziest part is that the computer itself did not even understand a single thing she told it. That computer was called ELIZA, the world's first AI chatbot. If you use AI today for anything, ChatGPT, Siri, AI agent, assistant, whatever it is, this story is part of your origin story too. Because what ELIZA revealed has nothing to do with technology, but everything to do with us. ELIZA was designed to act like a therapist, not the type of therapist that gives you advice, but the kind of therapist that listens, reflects, and lets you talk yourself into clarity. Here is how a typical conversation would go. Someone would say, men are all alike. And ELIZA would go, in what way? That was it. No opinion, no insights shared. Then the user would say, they're always bugging us about something or other. ELIZA would say, can you think of specific examples? And at some point, the user would say, my boyfriend made me come here. And ELIZA would respond, your boyfriend made you come here? Now, pause. That doesn't sound impressive, right? But to the person typing, it felt like someone was finally listening. You see, here is the part nobody actually thinks about. The fact that ELIZA wasn't exactly intelligent. It wasn't thinking, it wasn't understanding emotions, it wasn't even following the conversation. It was doing something simple. You type in the words, ELIZA would scan the word for keywords and would return those keywords with you, either as a question or as a statement. And if it gets confused, it would simply say, tell me more, or why do you say that? There was no memory, no empathy. You see, ELIZA was able to force a reaction out of people, a reaction called ELIZA Effect. It is what happens when humans begin to project their intelligence, emotions into objects like machines that really has nothing like that. Basically, what we do is feel in the emotions ourselves, and that is where the story gets crazier. ELIZA was built by Joseph Weizenbaum, who was an MIT professor. Joseph wasn't trying to replace human. He wasn't even trying to play God. As a matter of fact, he was curious about human communication, and he had a personal reason why. Joseph's childhood wasn't easy. He was born in Berlin in 1923 to a middle-class Jewish family. His mother actually refused to believe that he was her child when he was born, and his father never seized the chance to let him know that he was worthless and a big fool. From a young age, Joseph grew up thinking that he was worthless and there was nothing good that could come out of him. Now, imagine a child growing up with that kind of mindset. Eventually, he got into school. He had issues understanding English language. He fell in love with algebra because algebra was plain simple. All you needed to do was understand how abstract it was, and that was it. So, computers felt safe for him. And a few years down the line, in the university, he joined a couple of other students to build a computer for one of his professors. That was how Joseph's interest in computing heightened. So he began to pick interest in not just computing, but also psychoanalysis. Then he decided, what if it was possible to communicate with computers using natural languages like English, not having to use machine languages that takes time to process? So the idea struck him and he decided to give it a shot. He proceeded to building ELIZA, which became the world's first AI chatbot. One day, Joseph's secretary asked to spend some time chatting with ELIZA, and a few minutes after, she asked Joseph to excuse her from the room. She wanted privacy. It was at that point that Joseph realized that this was no longer about codes, it was something deeper. Joseph realized something terrific, that people were no longer responding to codes, rather, they were responding to the feeling of being understood. And it became frightening for him that if humans could attach themselves to something as simple as this, what then will happen when the system becomes better, smarter, more convincing, and even more fluent? Joseph figured that the whole of humanity would suffer greatly. He spent the rest of his life trying to criticize what he had built and the work of his other colleagues. Now, he did this not because AI was bad or evil, but because humans are vulnerable. And he wondered what amount of power those who built tools like this would have over humanity if this continued. But none of that stopped people from interacting with ELIZA or even trying to build better models that could emulate ELIZA. Fast forward to today, AI sounds better. It has context, it has memories, and sometimes it can even offer you a piece of advice. It does sound wise. But then Eliza already showed us that the danger isn't that the AI understands you, but that you as a human feel understood. And that is why today you hear people say simple things like, I don't have a friend to talk to, I rather talk to my AI. You see, this exactly was what Joseph warned humanity about. Eliza proved one thing we humans don't like to admit, the fact that we don't need real empathy to be seen. We just need the right words in the right order. The next time you use AI, maybe you should ask yourself this question: am I using AI as a tool, or am I slowly handling myself over to it?